Joining us now is attorney Robert Garson. He's the president of the American Association of Jewish Lawyers. Robert, thank you so much for joining us tonight. So Arab League states are supporting genocide charges. How does this impact the Abraham Accords and long-term impact on Israeli-Arab relations?
What's been very interesting about this, Alexa, is that Saudi Arabia, Bahrain and Oman have been conspicuously silent. These charges, no doubt, they've been brought by South Africa. They haven't been brought by the Arab League. They've not been brought by any other country. And it begs a question of why. Why South Africa, of all the countries in the world? Now, they've had a Hamas office in Pretoria for quite a time. After October the 7th, they hosted Hamas leadership there. Who's funding this is a massive question. And what's South Africa's, as we would say in Britain, what's their dog in the race, so to speak?
I think that's a very important question to ask. Will you talk about how deteriorating relations between Israel and the Arab League might impact the wider region and eventually the world?
No. Well, that was the whole intent of the October 7th atrocities. Iran has been looking over at what's going on with Saudi Arabia and Israel with the Abraham Accords. They've seen everybody getting along. Hamas, especially, is feeling left out of the picture because what would happen if there were peace in the region? If there were peace in the region with Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Egypt, Jordan, all of that could become a very strong economic bloc and against Iran, so to speak. Iran can't have that happen. And the way they did it was by, over years, looking to stockpile weapons, etc., so that Hamas would commit really the most terrible atrocities.
And talking about the case, what are the real chances of South Africa winning this case against Israel, and what happens if they do?
Well, the chances are, Lord alone knows, because this is this is a case of first impression. It's remarkable because the question as to whether or not they've got standing in this case hasn't been settled at all. As I said to you right at the beginning, what's their dog in this race? And I say this not just as somebody who's the president of the American Association of Jewish Lawyers. I'm qualified as a barrister in the United Kingdom, as attorney in New York, Florida, and DC. And I'll tell you, the standing of South Africa to bring this case is deeply suspect. South Africa isn't the victim in any sense, and legally its ability to bring this case is dubious at best. So that's that side of it. Also, the fact that Hamas is not subject to the jurisdiction of the ICJ is even more strange, as any ruling is not binding. Firstly, it's not actually binding upon Israel itself, but it's certainly not binding upon the prime aggressor in this conflict. The argument is by South Africa that Gaza, Hamas, is not sufficiently deemed to be an entity to be brought before the ICJ. Now, that runs directly contradictory to UN and UNRWA funneling billions of dollars into Hamas pockets. It is a bizarre show trial. And remember, we have judges here from Lebanon, Somalia, China, and Russia looking at whether or not Israel has genocidal intent. It is so convoluted and fraught with legal problems that even if it were to be found, even if Israel were to be found liable, I think it would be deeply suspect.
Well, and the enforcement of any consequences is another question that you raise. Now, there's actually a lawsuit filed against President Biden for failing to prevent Israel from allegedly committing genocide in Gaza. What could happen or play out with that? Do you think it could impact U.S. military aid to Israel?
Absolutely not. I think that's one of the most ridiculous lawsuits that's ever been brought in the history of lawsuits. Biden was, while some people may not like President Biden, while some people may not like some of his policies, certainly with regard to allowing Israel to commit genocide, there are so many steps that go in that. Look, we all know that Israel, right from the beginning, could have wiped Hamas off the face of the earth, could have wiped Gaza off the face of the earth. Israel, over the past 20 years, has poured billions of dollars, along with the United States, into constructing the Iron Dome, which is a purely defensive military piece of hardware, so to speak, so that they can live whilst tens of thousands of rockets are being rained down or launched as against Israel. To say that Israel has had genocidal intent, it's just not shown on the face of the original papers. But secondly, to say that President Biden has contributed in some way to Israel committing genocidal intent when it was, remember, prior to October the 7th, Israel was on the verge of granting even more work permits for Palestinians to come into Israel. The evidence isn't there, and the evidence won't be shown to be there. So I think President Biden can carry on doing what he is doing. I'm not part of his legal team. I'm unlikely to ever be part of his legal team, but I think he's safe doing what he's going to be doing.
It'll certainly be interesting to see how this all plays out. Robert Garson, president of the American Association of Jewish Lawyers, thank you for your time and insight. We appreciate it.
Alexa, anytime.